This is the day that no God has made. Let us rejoice and be glad that it's another episode of the Non-Profits. Welcome back, all my good
Hallelujah.
people. Woo! Oh, you're pumped. I love
Hey
it.
there, Jenna.
Hey, Malty. You know what? I'm officially back. I've been off on a break, not really a break, transition with the COVID and the shifts at work, but I'm here. I'm with you all. So I'm pumped. I'm excited to be here. It's good to see your all faces. Wow. And a new face, which I'll get to in a moment. But let me run some information with everyone in our YouTube audience before we get started. This is the Nonprofits, if you don't already know. This show is a product of the ACA, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the separation of religion and government and promoting positive atheism. Now, I want to first and foremost introduce our guest hosts for this afternoon, Mr. Mikey Famine. How are you?
Hi, Jenna. This is
Hi,
my first
Mike.
meeting. This is my first time meeting you. You seem very lovely.
Thank you. It's nice to meet you too. But seriously, I know Mikey, we are familiar. I know you work
Yes.
closely with our dear friend here, Neil. Tell us, what do you do? Where are you on the interwebs? What's up with you?
Aside from being the producer for this guy right here, for his show, I host my own podcast with four of my best friends, and we're scattered all over the globe. And we wrap up. It's a weekly show on Thursdays, and we wrap up the last week's politics and social issues and anything that is especially egregious that we just have to talk about. And we make fun of each other almost the entire time.
Yeah, I know. I've caught several of your live episodes on my lunch breaks because you run early during the day.
Yeah, we're 2 p.m. Central Time, so
Mhm.
that's the best time we can do with people in Sweden and in California. So
Oh, that's fair.
sorry.
No, I know. Watching your podcast and then being introduced with to you through Neil has been a pleasure. So I'm happy to have you as our guest host this afternoon with us. I know with you and Neil, how long have you guys kind of collaborated together?
I don't know,
It's
Neil.
been a few
What's it
years.
been? No, not a few years. Maybe a year.
Yeah,
I've been
I was
hanging out
thinking
with.
it's
Yeah,
coming up to a year. I think in the springtime.
yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, you know what? We
Who can
always like
keep
having.
track of these things?
I tried to get rid of him, but he's like herpes. Once you get it, he just doesn't go away.
Nah, that pill is not. It does not do what it describes on the outside of the bottle.
No,
That is
that is
for
the
sure.
worst. That is the worst, best example ever. And I love it.
Yeah,
Thank you. Well, I'm happy to have you, Mikey. I'm glad you agreed to
Thanks.
do and be our guest host. And I hope after doing this little episode with us, you keep joining us. Multi, I know it's been a while since we've connected. How you been, sir?
hey, I've been okay.
Good.
Yeah,
Oh, well, perfect. Well, I mean, if we don't want to delay any further, let me jump to what we have in store for us today. But let me run through a few things here. If you haven't already done so, my YouTube audience, please subscribe to this channel and click the like button down below if you happen to like what we do here. Set your notification bell so you can always be notified when we have our premiere episodes, which run every Sunday right between the Talk Heathen and right before AXP. If you can support us on Patreon, please do so at patreon.com/the nonprofits. Feel free to join us in our various social media fan servers and fan groups and sites. We are located, of course, through the Atheist Community of Discord, which is one of our Discord fan servers. You can find us at tiny.cc/ACA Discord. And also, you can find us and, judge up a little conversation with us on facebook.com/groups/nonprofits live. And if at all possible, during out this, conversation with us this afternoon, tell us what you like. Or also tell us what you don't like. We're going to run through something really special this afternoon. So shoot us an email at nonprofits@atheist-community.org. And of course, per usual, as custom to us here at the Nonprofits, links to all that we discuss during this episode are available in the description down below. Feel free to pause this video, read the material for yourself if you feel you like to. Don't just take our word for it. but make sure
Follow
you
the
come
law.
back to hear what we have a discussion. Yeah, exactly. All right, so let's dive on in because, as we all should know, it is Black History Month.
Whoop whoop.
Hey, sure is. And allow me to borrow a religious phrase, in the spirit of the season. I wanted to frame a conversation around, Black social justice and discrimination. Now, I do feel, and I bet all of you can most likely agree with me, that perhaps the first half of our discussion today will be a bit heavy. And indeed, it will be. There is significance and importance to Black history because it's not just Black
Yeah.
history, it's American history, it's world
Mhm.
history. The history of, Black culture defines how the world was formed overall, especially here in America. So, you know, um, especially when diving into, I think there's a couple of things from Neil as far as being our northern neighbor, certain things I've learned about in regards to Black
Yeah,
prominence where you live in Canada. So that's definitely exciting. I want everyone to get a whiff of. So,
for sure.
but rest assured, towards the end, we have some lightheartedness and some positive affirmation and hope during all this discussion. So please, you two audience, stay with us as we move along. Something, uh, just to start us off, it leads us into our first topic is something I wanted to address and discuss for quite some time. And it has to do with hair discrimination and how this form of implicit bias is specifically targets Black people. Now, of course, clearly there is a bit of discrimination against all hair types based on workplace, based on school, wherever you go.
Yeah, I've dealt
But
with that.
yeah, I'm sure you have, Neil. And I just
Mhm.
was going to lead into that question for you personally, in
Mhm.
regards to, being discriminated. Have you been
Oh yeah,
discriminated
yeah,
against with hair? Yeah.
yeah. And like I said in my notes, I go in there and sometimes I'd even have my hair up in a hat, right? Like the song "Signs, Signs, Signs" everywhere. But anyway, um, and as soon as I took my hat off, the guy took another look at me and went, "Oh yeah, um, I'll give you a shout and let you know," kind of thing. And of course, I never heard from him again. But
Yeah.
I was all like, I had all the right stuff that he was looking for to have to do the job, and he was about to hire me, and I just
Mhm.
kind of pulled my hat off and was about to head out and go have a quick cigarette or whatever it was, and come back and talk a little bit more to him. And he said, "Oh yeah, I'll give you a call," and I never heard from him again. So
Wow.
yeah,
Wow. That's
that was
it's
the second
not.
time that happened.
Oh, that's the second. Well, what was the
Yeah,
first?
it happened before. I didn't have my
Oh,
hair up last time. I just walked in there and they said, "Yeah, the position's been filled." And then the next day, I saw the same ad that they refreshed in the
Right.
ad in the paper.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
wow.
yeah.
That's almost like the silent decline of,
The silent "fuck you."
yeah,
That's
Yeah, my office.
exactly.
the passive aggressive. I don't want to hire you.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
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 I didn't know it was my
Yeah.
hair that was required to do the job that I was capable of doing to begin
Mm.
with.
You think it wouldn't be.
Mhm.
You think it wouldn't be. And
I'm not.
before I dive too deep into each experience, because I know we all have something to share, I just want to reference something from
Mm.
what I saw from the American Bar Association, which kind of supplements everything that we're about to discuss, right? In which they state, and I quote, sadly, it's not a novel thing to compare in reference to their speaking hair discrimination if it is relevant or the same as race discrimination. But obviously minority groups are more targeted and suffer
Mhm.
hair discrimination for years, mainly within the workplace. And but we see evidence, and we can draw from references from young kids under the age of 18 and school age years, suffering from this.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Deliberate embarrassment of being pointed out, or the blatant actual, like, physical cutting of a person's hair. And Mikey, you
Mhm.
actually demonstrated a video to us right before recording. So it's
Yeah.
awful. It's awful. But Mikey, I wanted for you, because I know a lot of the conversation around hair discrimination always references women.
It
But
does. It does.
And I hardly ever get any perspective from a man's point of view. So please enlighten us.
Um, for me, it's not as it's usually not as blatant as like in Neil's case where they just like, not gonna hire that guy. They'll give me the job, but then if I try to move up into any sort of leadership position, nah, sorry, you just don't look professional. You got to look the part. And it's
What does that mean?
like, what do you mean look professional? Like, there's a woman right there with hair down to her butt, and she's a manager. And my hair at the time was just, I don't know, not even to my shoulders yet. It's all wrapped up in a hat. Sorry, guys, I didn't want to pull it out today. The mane takes some taming. Um, but my hair, if it's all the way picked out, will hit my shoulders now. And those people, I had one manager in particular. I know your name, but I'm not going to say it. He told me the only way I could even think of considering you is if you cut all your hair off. And I was like, doesn't sound legal. You can keep that. And I probably should have pursued it and done the whole thing, but it just wasn't worth it to me. I was just like, well, I'll just won't get promoted. But that's a stupid reason to not get promoted. It was just because my hair was too long. And it wasn't dirty, and it was well kept and just as professional as everyone else's hair. It was out of my face, and there wasn't a real reason for me not to have the hair for this job. There was nothing that it wasn't a safety thing. It had nothing to do with that. Just that it didn't look professional.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, unfortunately, it is legal, not illegal. Unfortunately, with the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals ruling against equal opportunity employment, they pretty much, in a nutshell, stated that it is circumstantial to base a stereotype on hair. It is not protected under Chapter 7.
Right.
And that's the reason why I don't have locks right now, because I wanted dreadlocks for years. But it was that one manager who was just like, I can't. So I don't want to, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, because you can't really, I mean, you can go back from having locks, but I don't want to put all of my eggs in one basket and then just to find out that I can't get a job anywhere because of my haircut, and that there's nothing I can do about it.
Right. And it's troubling, and it downright sucks that you have to consciously, subconsciously, and consciously think about that every time you need to present yourself to elevate yourself in your work, elevate yourself in getting through school, or whatever type of situation where it requires you to be at your best in order to perform that job function. But as you had just said, it wasn't the fact that you were declined that position only because you didn't meet a certain qualification. It was simply because your hair wasn't right.
And if you are a person of color, there's only so many things you can do to your hair before it just becomes a nightmare. So I mean, you can keep it cut low, but if you want a longer look, there isn't really anything. You can't have any length to your hair almost at all, it seems, without them deeming it unprofessional. So if you want to have like the little baby twisties, nope, unprofessional. If you want locks, unprofessional. Braids, unprofessional. So I have to pretty much go in with a shaved head, and everybody else gets to have their little swoopity doopity haircuts, and they can do all kinds of stuff. But I can't have anything but a bald head. No, that doesn't sound fair to me.
No, not at all. And it's not too far from what Neil had explained when he went in the second time around. Neil, you were saying for a work position. It's not too far of a the situation sounds the same, but we all know what I mean. At least there is a different bias behind that. I mean, they look at Neil, and obviously he is a Caucasian man with just extremely beautiful long hair. I know, I'm shocked.
I am.
It's not that beautiful.
Hey, whoa, Mr. Jealousy over here.
Yeah, quite.
Well, I mean, that is to be debated. But
Malty's hair is so fine that you just cannot see it with your heathen eyes.
Gone a long time ago.
But to further my point is that it's not so much the fact, it's just the hair alone. And it's hard to separate how there can't be an additional bias on top of that with what Mikey has went through, with what a lot of people in the workplace or during school has went through. With pertaining to referencing this piece from the American Bar Association, they listed several examples, even ones as recent as this time last year, demonstrating young girls, young men who were either expelled or suspended or
Mhm.
made embarrassed of because of the fact that they wore braids or they wore dreadlocks. And, with the video that you were showing to us, Mikey, before the
Mhm.
recording, we all saw it. The
Mhm.
guy, the person goes up to this kid and deliberately cuts his dreadlocks before he can go ahead and do his wrestling match.
Yeah, that was in New Jersey. So the referee decided that the kid's hair wasn't part of uniform, or it wasn't, that hairstyle wasn't allowed
Wasn't the
in wrestling.
code.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for wrestling. The kid had just wrestled last weekend, and there wasn't a problem. But they tried to put it on the kid, saying, "Well, they showed up late, and if I would have inspected them, I wouldn't have let him wrestle anyway." It's like, all right. So, and without going on too big of a tangent, it drove me crazy to see the kid sit there. He's bawling because he's so embarrassed that he has to get his hair cut by literally a nurse with like the scissors for like cutting gauze, like the little bendy scissors with the little crook in them. Like that's what she's using to cut his hair, and in front of the entire gym. And then he wins the match. Everyone, every parent in there, every coach in there should have been all over that ref.
Mm-hmm.
Because if for whatever reason my son or daughter is in a wrestling match and a ref tries to do that to them, and all the other adults in the room don't stop this, oh, I got a problem with all of you. All of you I'm holding to account. That guy is bullying my kid. And you guys all sat there and just said, "Oh, good job, man. Good job, man." No, what are you talking about, good job, man? He shouldn't have been in that. As soon as that lady came at him with scissors, he should have walked out.
Now, I'm wondering, and yeah, thank you for that. And I'm wondering, just dialing back to multi relating to it not being, it's not legal, or it's not against the law to
Right.
do what happened to that poor kid.
It went
And
to
yeah,
the Supreme Court, the 11th District Court. Correct.
okay, yeah.
Circuit Court.
Circuit Court. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know presently, and this is something I've researched myself, something I've known for quite a while, something known as the Crown Act. Now, this was cropped up from an incident where a young professional woman went into trying to get a job interview, and same situation, was discriminated against or denied the position based because she had tight braids or tight laid plaits in her hair. And so it's another form of braids, if no one knows. But the condition that you are still discriminating someone against their appearance, that has to be under some form of law or code. But with the Crown Act, which is presently a sitting past law, sitting in the U.S. House of Representatives right now, it was passed September of 2020. Pretty much addresses that no state, making it, if passed, if legalized, this law would affirm that states cannot lawfully dismiss or deny individuals or discriminate against them, whether in workplace, school, any situation, solely based on the fact of hair texture. And presently, there's about 7 states that have their own form of that legislation. So, of course, all other states are considering it, but none of that has been enacted. And of course, this can't be universal if we don't have this type of legislation moved. So, what can we do?
Yeah.
It's sad that even has to be a thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. When I was starting to look into the Crown Coalition and the Crown Act, And the Crown Research study, which they used to show this discrimination as a real thing that needs to be addressed, there's some things that really stood out to me, and that this, from all I continued to see, was a group of people that were not going to put it in front of legislators and let it be. They are pushing, and rightfully so, for this legislation to be enacted, and they will continue to push for racial justice and non-discrimination. It's very interesting to see these groups in juxtaposition from, say, academia, which would say, "Hey, this is going on. Here you go. Why don't you do something?"
Right.
Where this is a group of people that are driven and motivated to make sure that these types of economic inequalities, and you have these hair inequalities are just one of those, of a number of inequalities that need to be addressed. So
Yeah,
it's a good group of both people and businesses that seem to be working on this.
So is hair discrimination a form of race discrimination? ABA says maybe, but what do we say?
Wouldn't it be situational, I suppose, I guess?
I suppose you can make an argument for that.
Because with me being your cis white guy being turned down just because of my hair, I highly doubt it was race driven.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So maybe if people of color came in and had hair that they didn't like, I'm sure that it also tied into the race as well. In most cases, I would say, for sure.
Yeah, because I mean, this is how my hair grows.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what you want me to do about that. And telling me I have to just be bald all the time is not an option. Like everyone else gets to grow their hair the way that they like. I don't know that you can tell me, I think your scalp is unprofessional. I don't know.
Right.
Your scalp is doing this weird thing where your hair is all standing straight up, and I don't know.
Right.
Just cut it all off. So
exactly.
and if that's due to your race, that your hair has a certain texture and reacts a certain way, then that's I'm sorry.
I mean, there's history behind it, right?
Yeah.
Because when slaves were brought over, because the reflection of hair back in African tribes was defined the level of status that you had. Mm-hmm. And once we were brought over here, one of the first things that they did to African slaves then was cut their hair, or did something to where it appeared how they wanted to appear. And it's so interesting diving into this, because now I'm kind of thinking of my own past. When my mother would do my hair, there would be a set day that slave owners would have their slaves, I'll just say it. Yeah, slave owners would have their slaves, fix and groom themselves. That would be appropriate, especially if they were in-home slaves or house slaves. And so, and that particular day actually happened to be either a Saturday or a Sunday. And I reflect on myself. I was like, there's always a day right before church or a day of where I just have to have this one day of grooming, to where my hair has to be pressed and chemically straightened and all this good stuff. So, and it's so funny to just kind of think about that. But the root of the discrimination when it comes to hair discrimination for Black people is that our texturized hair, for whatever meaning it is of unprofessional, looks unclean, unkept. For whatever reason, we have to adjust to what their standards are, and that's difficult.
Yeah, and it pervades all the way up into the U.S. military. I believe there was a case with a woman in the Marine Corps who was wearing. Excuse me, I had to do some research. I did not know about specific types of hair that there are. There are some beautiful, what is this? Protective hairstyle.
Exactly.
So
That's exactly what it is,
wonderful.
Malty. Thank
I
you.
mean,
That's exactly
it
what
is that. How is that not professional? Please take a second, go Google that, and you will see some of the most professional and beautiful hairstyles I've seen.
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And I bring this back to my own experience as far as and I made a mention of this in leading up to my to doing this or preparing this show was that, reflecting on how Black people view other Black people's hair. And I see it or heard it a lot from my own family. I remember just last week, just watching the news. I was at my mother's house, and there we watch MSNBC, and we're just watching this one particular Black woman that just had this short kind of afro. She looked she's beautiful, beautiful woman. I can't recall her name right now, but she wore this really beautiful purple dress, and I loved her makeup. I was just, over it because my favorite color is purple. But the only thing I could I heard from my mother say uh, that was at all positive was referencing her dress, but quote, why does she have to wear her hair like that? We damage ourselves. We damage ourselves by saying that.
Yeah, there's a lot of self-flagellation in the Black community, especially when it comes to wearing your hair in public, where people are often feel pressured. Like I always got pressured to cut my hair. Always got pressured. Like, don't just cut it. Don't even. You could just get it lined up and do that. No, I'm not doing any of that. I'm keeping it exactly the way I like it, and I'm not putting no relaxer in there. I'm not doing nothing. It grows. I brush it back into a ponytail, and I keep the day rocking. This is what I want with my hair. And I'm sure homegirl in the purple dress was like, I'm looking good today. She's like, I'm looking good today. And she walked right out there and didn't pay none of us a second thought. Props to her. Do your hair how you want to do your hair. And we're going to work on these laws in the meantime to make sure that people can discriminate against us because of it.
Right. I think the major point is that the treatment of fairness. All right. It's the fact that, okay, if anyone else had their hair the way they present themselves, they would not be met besides, the obvious extravagant long hair that Neil has. Besides anyone else, if we came up to get a position, we would not be met with that type of or we should not be met with that type of discrimination, and it should be an equal playing field. And this in a sense should fall under some type of reflection of dress code discrimination, which, in all with all of this talk about like leading into it being equal fairness, I want this kind of bridges me into our next discussion, just involving racial injustice and reflection of Black people. And I know with our recent in the last month when we had the insurrection charge on the U.S. Capitol. I'm not heavily diving into that. We already had that discussion brilliantly last week by our other MP hosts. Thank you so much. But I want to take from that the obvious difference as far as how the insurrectionists were handled and treated versus how just last year or the previous year before that, how Black Lives Matter presented themselves at the U.S. Capitol, and there was just hordes of law enforcement at the ready. I mean, you literally could not take one step, let alone try to get all the way into the Senate floor.
That's right.
Yeah.
But yeah, when these guys go there, they just stand aside and let them break windows and climb into the building.
They were like 8 or 9 deep on the Capitol steps that all of them were storming up. The National Guard was 8 or 9 deep over the summer for Black Lives Matter. And then they were like, oh, we're 2 hours out. 2 hours out? You guys knew they were coming. They've been posting it on the internet for weeks.
Yep.
They had shirts printed. This was not spontaneous. Someone ordered an extra large shirt. They probably should have got a double XL. I saw some little, on the bottom. But I'm just saying, they had time to print these out, and you still
did.
And
It reminds me actually when the Vancouver Canucks and Boston met in the Stanley Cup here, there were a Facebook page because back in '94 when we went to meet New York and we lost, there was a riot. So they planned another riot here, and it was planned months in advance. And the police knew, but they still didn't put enough force there. And these guys were flipping the police cars over and lighting them on fire. Like, you guys knew about this months ahead of time.
Hockey players, man. Hockey fans.
Hockey.
Hockey fans are something else.
Oh yeah.
Oh my
Not
God.
quite soccer fans, but yeah.
Right. That's funny that you make that a little mention here, because I wanted to draw this to you, Neil, and something I discovered in drawing up this conversation that I read about in regards to something I read about recently. There happens to be some type of similarity in regards to what we experienced a month ago here in the U.S. to what we had. I guess I can't recall what the name of that. I don't know if it's a province or
Manitoba.
Manitoba. Thank you, Manitoba.
Yes.
As
The
far as
premier of Manitoba. Yeah.
mhm.
The racist dick that he is. Yeah. 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 I don't really know a whole heck of a lot about the guy, but on a brighter note, Canada is the first country in the world to announce the Proud Boys as being a terrorist organization. So there's that.
Yeah.
Canada always wins everything.
Always
Not
got to be
quite.
on top, literally.
Not quite, because you guys beat us in the World Juniors in hockey. So
We'll take it.
it's always hockey with these guys. Right? So, but in the article about that in Canada, you do there's definitely racism. It's just not as, I guess, boisterous as it is down in the States. It's a lot of little look at the and that kind of thing here. A lot of whispering, but it is racism regardless. And I know this because I'm amongst some people some of the time that talk like that. And and some of these folks are racists and anti-vaxxers and anti-maskers too. Like nowadays too. Like even one of my relatives, I won't say which one, but and that relative should really consider getting the vaccine for COVID because they work in the health industry.
Mm.
And I hate to break it to them, but they're probably going to have to get it regardless if they want to keep their job. But yeah, this kind of stuff runs rampant up here too. The only reason it's not as in your face as it is down in the States is because our population pretty much fits in California. So, and then we don't have the numbers you guys have, so you don't hear about it as much. And as we talked a little bit earlier, Jenna, that you guys don't really get the Canadian history stuff, which is why you didn't know about Viola Desmond, as we'll bring up in a bit.
Oh.
But right, so
right.
yeah, but we've got it here too, and proof's in the pudding at the premier of Manitoba, because he's kind of a, for lack of a better term, douche canoe.
Yeah. And I'm wondering, in reference to this article that I have here from the Atlanta Tribune, there have been so many reactionary articles and references to what happened on the U.S. Capitol. I wanted to try and identify and focus on what was the Black perspective, and the obvious perspective is there is a double standard. How
big time.
how. Oh, Mikey, I see you, Mikey. I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna get you. You're itching. I see you.
What? No, just dry skin. It's winter air. Just a little.
Oh, but the obvious difference, how those individuals were handled, how it took just almost a week to find certain ones where it could be almost an overnight thing, or just in that instance for a person to be arrested if one of us happened to do that very same thing. And actually, in reference to that, there's something I actually read about just yesterday from Embassy News, to where one particular individual that was a promoter of Trump and was actually one of the insurrectionists that happened to be African American was a person that was he actually turned himself in. And supposedly, I guess he is an individual that has mental health issues and is homeless. But There has since been several arrests from various people that have been sought and seen at the scene. At least 6 or 7, it said, were have been released on bail, but
Yeah.
he was not. He was denied bail. Why? What's the difference?
They were gonna send him home, but he's homeless.
Mm.
Mm,
No, no, I don't buy that.
No, it's not.
yeah.
Not that. No.
Well,
It's not because he was black. That would be
if
crazy.
you got it, if you're going to go like to Mexico on vacation, but you're in jail and need to be released on bail, I mean, there's good reason to be released. Yeah, that happened.
He should have just planned a vacation. And they're like,
That's it.
oh, you're going on a trip. I'm sorry. Out you go.
Yeah.
Have a safe trip.
I don't want to make this too inconvenient for you. Come on, really? Like these several individuals were released on bail pre-trial. This particular man gets denied bail. I'm not advocating at the fact that he should have been released too. Like no, they all should be in jail for deliberately going against the breaking federal law and doing what they did. But to have the law read one way and you apply it for one group over the other is unlawful. How is
Mhm.
that not recognized? And why can't there be, obviously we're having this conversation, but why have I not heard this conversation more?
I mean, there's never been a case of, I don't know, maybe like a younger white vigilante type killing people and then leaving on his own recognizances. Mommy came in the minivan with a whole trunk full of Hot Pockets, and little Cartman went right back to his house and chilled, and then got to come back in 2 days after killing people.
Yeah, that happened though.
No,
That did happen. Yeah.
but this is what so the same system that allows that kid to leave a murder scene is the same system that lets these people walk all over them, but they have the most iron of fists when it comes to certain people. Every time, without any delay, I am from St. Louis. I am a St. Louis native, and within a week of the Mike Brown killing in Ferguson, they had MRAPs. They had tactical gear for all their cops. They had all this. They were setting up all these different like little SWAT areas, and they had all this done in a week. They knew about this insurrection for months, and that was in 2014. And I'm supposed to just sit back and like, oh man, they were just overwhelmed by the sheer number. They didn't even have that many people. And they knew who all of the people were because they knew all those people went on Parler and then took those Parler phones and put them on their bodies and then walked somewhere. And it's like they have no excuse for not knowing how to deal with these people unless they didn't want to deal with them and they thought it was okay.
And you actually feel that the police, you think they were not caught off guard, that they did not think that this would actually come to people trying to storm the Capitol? Because, when Black Lives Matter came to the Capitol to protest, they came to protest legally,
right?
Not to incite violence and insurrection. I live in an anarchy jurisdiction, like my sister city, Portland. I'm in Seattle, and we've had Black Lives Matter protests, nonviolent marches through the city, thousands of people wearing masks and social distancing while still showing that they are fed up with this racial inequality and will be exercising their civil rights with these protests. And they were met with CS gas, beam bags to the chest, so far as aid stations being overrun by cops while they're trying to resuscitate people because of bean bags to the chest.
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I want to pull it more home. I don't know if anyone out there watching us right now or any of you gentlemen recall this. Khalif Broder, a young African American man, was wrongfully arrested one night at a party a few years ago, fairly not that long ago, very, very recent.
Mm.
Um, Obviously, he was charged for something he did not do. But after several hours of grueling interrogation, also arresting a friend of his at that party, they still charged him with burglary and several other charges that obviously he did not do. He was just, he seemed identifiable to what they were looking for. And
Scapegoat.
right. And unfortunately, even pre and during his trial, he was kept in solitary confinement for 2 years,
Hmm.
thinking that this young man was some type of threat to not at least be in the prison regular prison population.
Gen
It-
Pop.
it- right. Thank you.
Hmm.
At Rikers jail in New York. And after that long thing, he was released, and all charges dropped. But the suffering, the mental suffering that he took on because of that trauma caused him to take his own life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. This was due to a 911 police report. Police were following up on a backpack that was supposedly containing a $700 camera and some credit cards and an iPod Touch.
Hmm.
Oh wow.
And that was he was imprisoned for over 2 years. Um, it never went to trial because the person who accused or said that they had lost the um, said that he had no had said that the backpack had been stolen, um, left the country, and
Hmm.
so the for quite some time the attorney's office did not have any way of moving forward on the case, but they still kept him in jail.
Still
So
kept him in jail.
there wasn't even a victim anymore, and he still just sat there. And how old? Do you remember, Jenna, how old he was when he went in there?
Early
Oh,
20s, 20 and
oh,
21.
Yeah.
and Rikers is like top 5 worst jails in the country.
Hmm.
So you
He's
send this kid who had no business in there, and you left him there for 2 years
he
by
was born
himself.
in '93, and he was in jail between 2010 and 2013.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's no. Yeah. And from what I understand, he was doing like a lot of speeches and doing a lot of work, a lot of activism work, because he's like, I don't want this to happen to somebody else.
Right.
But his mental injuries eventually overcame him. And you can't stick kids in places like that where real life monsters live and expect them to just be okay when they come out.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, hung himself at age 22.
I mean, it's that tragedy that, it, it's unfortunate that we can't have some type of constructive conversation to where when we are applying the law, why cannot we apply the law fairly? And it makes no sense, and I'm sure to anyone's mind, why, with very little to no evidence against this kid, was kept in solitary confinement of all places. Um, and I didn't know if it was ever post bail or denied bail, but either case, that was just heart wrenching and something that is not relatable, but as a reflection of this. And it was actually a passed along meme that I saw one day, a couple weeks ago, and it referenced a comparison of how crime is handled for one race over another. 12-year-old black kid was, I guess, illegally distributing CDs in a
Mhm.
mall. and he was arrested, and he at that time was tried as a felon. 12-year-old tried as a felon, versus this other news story within that same
Can they do
year.
that?
Oh, they can try a
Yeah.
juvenile as an adult, sure, if
Yeah.
if they
With
decide to
felonies.
for
Yeah.
felony.
Yeah.
Yeah. And within that same year, or at least several months after, another particular case where an older middle-aged Caucasian woman who happened to be a babysitter, uh, per what the article had said in reference to the case, she had deliberately hung a young child in the basement of a parent's home, hung the child, killed them, was not didn't serve any jail time, not even during her trial, had bail, and charges were dropped eventually. I'm probably recalling that wrong, but evidently the case is that she was not tried for murder. She was not committed. She got off.
I think she got probation.
Okay,
10
thank you.
years
She got probation.
on
My bad.
probation. Fortunately, someone did come by, found the child hanging, and was able to rescue the child.
Mm.
She had a bad day because she also ran over two people with her minivan on the same day. She her lawyer was saying that there was mental abuse and this was a mental break and that's what caused it. But whatever extenuating circumstances, for probation to be for vehicular assault with intent to do bodily harm, and this I don't know, I can't remember what they called the hanging, but yeah,
Attempted murder.
attempted
Yeah.
murder. Yeah.
Yeah. That's exactly that. And I it weighs heavy. It should weigh heavy on anyone's hearts that
Mm.
the we only uh request fairness. If we create these laws to where it works for everyone and not just a certain group of people, then we wouldn't have these type of issues. Or at best, we can have better conversations surrounding this, so we can make better progress and changes to defeating racism, to defeating, implicit bias, to defeating discrimination, and saving kids like Khalif, saving kids like uh, Trevor Martin and Michael Brown and all those various others that have died at the hands of unlawful things happening to them, unlawful killings that happen to them, and
Yeah.
it's unfortunate. And I have a quote
It's
here.
ridiculous.
It is, and just in the conversation, it recalled a quote that I referenced or came across, and I'm just going to kind of read it from Michelle Obama. Race and racism is a reality that so many of us grow up learning to just deal with. But if we ever hope to move past it, it can't just be on people of color to deal with. It
Mhm.
it's up to all of us. And I think those are powerful words from a powerful woman that we all are familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, eh, despite all this heavy news, and it it gives me some type of positive affirmation and hope that we have such powerful, representation now to fight
Yeah.
for the justices that have. And I kind of want to dive into reflecting on a particular individual right now. And we're going to start with that. And she is Shirley Chisholm in our Looking Back segment.
Looking back.
Now, I know not everyone is super familiar, but for me, she is a great representation of a very strong Black woman that I look up to. And every time I hear a speech from her, or every time I hear a speech from Michelle Obama or Kamala Harris or Ciara Abrams, all of them, they just make me boohoo. Um, so I'm not going to talk about it. Malty, I know you have great history. I know she recently just there was recently a foundation for her being made.
Yeah.
Discuss that with us.
Um, Well, the foundation, I don't have a whole bunch on. I hope one of you else do. But I can talk a little bit about Shirley Chisholm and the work that she did. She had a lot of firsts. I am sad and embarrassed to say that prior to being asked to be on this panel, I had not heard of Shirley Chisholm, Fighting Shirley, as she was called. But she had again, she spent, she, back up, born and raised in New York City. She entered the political sphere as a representative in the state from 1965 to 1968. Then she was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives for the 91st session of Congress. That was 1969, and ran and stayed there consecutively through the 97th Congress. So she was there from 1969 to 1983. And then
15 years,
yeah, and then run for president.
Yep.
Ran for the Democratic nomination for president in what, 1972?
72, yeah.
Yeah. So at that time, she was like, I knew that I would not be able to get the nomination, but I had to try to show that it could be done.
Mm-hmm.
And now, getting a little verklempt. And now we have Kamala Harris as our vice president.
Mm-hmm.
Bum, bum, ba, bum, bum, ba-dum, ba-dum, ba-da-dum.
Yeah. So if I can, I'd like read a little quote from
Oh yes,
from Shirley. This was from her presidential speech, her stump speech, I guess.
That's the word.
I am not the candidate of Black America, though I am a Black and proud. I am not the candidate of the women's movement in this country, although I am a woman and equally proud of that. I am the candidate of the people, and my presence before you symbolizes a new era in American political history.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I know of Shirley Chisholm.
Mm-hmm. It takes strife and courage to, especially during those times, to put yourself in the forefront, make yourself vulnerable, but stand strong against all that comes at you, especially for a woman, especially for a Black woman to do such a thing. And it's because of her that individuals like our current VP, that are representatives in Atlanta, Sarah Abrams, and so many others that are minorities, not just Black, stand on her shoulders. Her picture hangs still in the U.S. House of Congress. Big, beautiful picture of her. Um, as you said, her nickname was known as Fighting Shirley, and that's exactly what's in quotations underneath her portrait. So it's so much that we can look up to, so many of us that we can look up to say, yes, this person was powerful and represented not just the benefit for herself, but everyone, and became an encourager to be a fighter, to advocate for the self, and demonstrate that there can be better days than this, and we can be stronger than what we are now. And to demonstrate that with such grace and dignity that she had, even being against her own party in certain things.
Oh
She
yeah,
stood up for what she stood up for what she was fighting for and
she was
advocating for.
very against the expansion of the military, very against increasing in military spending, was very for equality, increasing help for the poor, and elevating everyone to a higher social standard of living. That's what she worked. That's what she spent her time working on.
Right. And I know for you, Neil, you had mentioned, and I you had mentioned that for yourself, you never heard of Shirley Chisholm.
Never heard of it. And
Yeah.
you were saying earlier, Malty, that you hadn't really heard of her either, right?
Yeah, correct.
Right. And I think that I don't know how to put this, but I think it's like being white. We don't get a lot of the part of the history about colored people, especially also I'm a Canadian as well. So we don't get a lot of that. And I think that that's a problematic because it continues to serve racial divides.
Yeah. But there can be said about that too, right? Because even for myself, and I will take in defense to what you said, even for myself, even though I knew of Shirley Chisholm, there are so many, a whole host of other people in history that are African American that I did not know of. We every year, every month, in February, every year, it's always the same people. Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, maybe a little bit about Malcolm X, but it's more on the negative than the positive. It's the same.
Yeah.
It's the same folks, but you don't hear Shirley Chisholm. You don't hear James Baldwin. You don't hear W.E.B. Du Bois. Maybe you don't hear Robert Smalls. You don't hear
C.J. Walker.
C.J. Thank
So
you.
many.
So many.
Everyone should
I
be in
didn't even
spotlight.
learn about in school.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
Of course, I only recently learned about the girl, the lady that I was talking about with you earlier, Viola Desmond, who's now on the Canadian $10 bill. But she's basically Canada's version of Rosa Parks. Instead of being on a bus, she was in a theater, sitting in the white people's section of the theater. And she was asked to leave, and she was like, "Nope." Like, nah, I don't think so. And she got arrested. But she was, set free. She had a lawyer and whatnot. And now she sits on our $10 bill. A vertical $10 bill, by the way, not the...
Yeah. I think we're still working on trying to get Harriet Tubman on one of our currencies.
Man, they've been promising me the Harriet Tubman 20 for about 38 years now. I'm about sick of this. Quit playing games with me, mint treasury people. Just make the damn bill already.
Yeah, get the Trail of Tears out of there, please.
Quit stagulating.
My point is I hadn't learned about Viola either until much later. I didn't learn about her in school. I didn't learn about her in college, so
I don't.
It's like it's buried, and to me that's frustrating and infuriating.
And it seems like as you go through school, you always start at, I don't know what it is in Canada because I'm not allowed there anymore. No, but they always start you at 1776 and then they go up to like, oh, we'll go up to this year. And then you go again. It's like, all right, so we're going to start at 1776 and then we're going to get to the Civil War. Okay. So then you're going to go to middle school. Okay. Now we're going to start 17 and then we're going to get to World War I. And they just kind of just keep starting from the beginning. It's like, no, we've already had the same thing 55 times. Get to the part where there was other than just old white dudes with wooden hippo teeth. Like, can we talk about someone other than George Washington, please?
We start from Europe. We do European history and how it led to people coming over here. So.
I don't even remember European history.
We had world history, and then they tried to like the story of Earth in a semester, and I was like, okay.
Good luck with that.
And I think my history teacher at the time really wanted to be like one of those dudes, like one of those like correspondents on the History Channel. Oh man, his tests were absolutely insane. It's like, bruh, that last 45 minutes is not in the book. I'm gonna need you to calm down and I need to be able to look up these answers. He loved him from history.
Yeah. It's funny, but it's not because I've only in recent years, just as many of you, only found out so much about these people I did not know until today. And it's fascinating and it's empowering. And like I mentioned, like every time I see, a strong Black woman talking, I just boo-hoo because it just reminds me of where we come from and how hard we work to get there.
Yeah.
But we're still fighting. And so many minorities are still fighting.
I just wish people, I always use this quote that I always use. I always like to say that I thought it up a long time ago, but I'm pretty sure other people have thought this one up too. Basically, there's one race, people, the human race, and just like
Mm.
every other species, we come in a variety. So get over it.
Yeah.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Malty.
well, I was just you had asked about the um, Shirley Chisholm Educational Foundation. So I just did want to touch on that before we left that subject, or if you wanted to do it. Jenna, I can't hear you. Is that me?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
That was
no
my fault.
worries.
Yes, please go ahead, Malty.
Oh yeah. So it's a foundation of educational for online mentorship of young women to try to elevate them and provide community support. So good works all around.
Yeah,
And that's important for young women of color to have like a resource and have some people in the business already to give you to help you build those bridges you need to be a young professional and stuff like that, because that's half of executives. It's just knowing somebody.
right.
And then once you get that opportunity, you just hit it out of the park and there you sit. But you don't always get invited to things. Hell,
No.
maybe you walk in there with an afro. I mean, a lot of doors can get shut in your face before you even get there. So
Hopefully we can get the Crown Act off the floor of the House into the Senate and passed.
Yes.
if it does go through,
Right.
Dreadlock
Yeah.
Mikey is coming in soon, baby.
Well, I mean, it has passed the House. I mean, it has gone to the
Yeah.
Senate now.
Yeah, hopefully with the slight majority that we have in the Senate, we can actually make this federal legislation. And I'd be darned to see what the other side says as far as denying it. I'd be darned. I
They're
yeah,
pretty creative, I've noticed. So
Yeah.
very
I
creative.
can't even think of the stuff that they think of. I'm like, I didn't even think that crazy. Like, dang, unicorns might be summoned from dreadlocks. Never thought of it before.
Is that big wind that's going to be blowing in carrying those unicorns?
that's
Very-
right.
Yeah.
Unicornado.
Oh no.
Is that a movie? If it's not a movie,
It's
can
gonna
you
be
make it a
now.
movie?
Make it happen, please. Somebody write it down. You know,
Why not? They did Sharknado. So
exactly. It's funny. I meant to mention this quote early on in reference to just driving the Crown Act, because, of course, the legislation was not brought into the floor, or would not have been brought to the floor if it wasn't for a particular representative. His name escapes me right now, but he is of African American background. But this interesting quote that I pulled from a study, and just finding out more involvement and backing behind the Crown Act, was from R. Joseph Salisbury. He's a research doctor out of the University of Manchester, UK. And he says, I quote, "If your hair is relaxed, white people are relaxed. If your hair is nappy, they're not happy."
yeah.
And it is funny. It's funny to say, but it's damn right disgusting, because I can only for myself recall the conscientious effort of making my appearance presentable to where everyone else at the table around me feels comfortable with me being there. To make that effort to not offend you, because if I choose to wear my hair natural, or if I choose to, wear my dreads or grow it out and it just turns into a curly fro, or if I choose to wear this type of style to where, black hair, just like any other hair, is very versatile, whether you wear wigs, weaves, whatever it is, you know, it takes and the strife with the Shirley Chisholm Foundation, and having those professional people in place to help guide you to that table, because you deserve that, to that seat at that table, is powerful. And I'm encouraged to just see that representation in leaders like that. So I believe that benefit from it um, is empowering for not just myself, or not just Mikey, but all of us, that should be encouragement to see that we all collectively are challenging ourselves to be better and do better. And I think
Mhm.
that's what best demonstrates and encompasses the life of Shirley Chisholm. And I actually, before I move further on, and thank you so much, Malty, you had referenced, you know, how the Crown Act was initiated in the U.S. House. Representative Cedric Richmond, thank you so much. He is the one that initiated presenting that
To the House
legislation.
floor. Yeah.
Yeah, he was the sponsor.
Yes, but you know, in this quote, just reading on Shirley Chisholm, I actually watched this segment on a news show some time ago. She didn't want to be remembered as just the first Black woman to do such and such thing. She said, and I quote, "I like for them to say that Shirley Chisholm had guts. That's how I like to be remembered." And she did have guts. She stood for something, even within her own party. And it's people like her, and it's people that I admire, like Mandisa Thomas, for us Black non-believers. That is a great representation of a person that demonstrates themselves, powerful, effective, um, that has gotten to the level that she is now because of the community she's built around encouraging Black nonbelievers and propping up and helping them and building a community for that assistance. And just recently, which kind of moves us along in our discussion here, just building up from the positive affirmation and hope with theme of the show. Um, she recently, with the support of the ACA, we helped, match the charity donation or the fundraiser donation for their 10th anniversary, which they
Oh, no
had.
way.
Yeah, right on.
Awesome.
Which
Awesome.
they had mid-January over the weekend. Now, I attended the virtual conference, which was super exciting because I never done any type of atheist, non-believer type conference before. So that was a good one for me. Even if it was virtual, someday in the future, I hope to be in person.
Mhm.
But you know, for her, uh, that is for myself, for I'm sure for Mikey as well, for us Black non-believers, that's an ideal view of what we can look to as far as being positive representation of what it means to be um, forward thinking, progressive folks that don't cling on to faith. But at the
Mhm.
same time, we can still have conversations with people of faith and build up our society to where we can all structure ourselves to live better and be better and do better.
I'm less warm and cuddly. Uh,
That's just
um,
applies to everything
No.
I just said. So thank you.
I'm usually not the, guys, let's just set our differences aside. No, I'm gonna
Hug
argue.
it out, man.
I ain't hugging nothing.
Okay,
No, I need 6 feet, and I'm using Norton antivirus on my computer as soon as I'm done with this video chat. Like I don't want to be touched by nobody. I'm usually not, like, I can find common ground with people and pick my battles, but no, I like to get in there. I like to get in and get messy. I don't want to agree with you. No, I don't care if you do nice stuff this way. Stop yelling at the gay kids and kicking them out of the house. Stop. Like, until you do something, like, I won't play nice with them. That's why I just kind
Sure,
of
sure. There's
keep to
certain things
myself.
definitely like that. Yeah.
But it's the same people. They're like, oh, see, we can
Yeah. No,
join
I
hands. And I'm just like, oh, not today.
Yeah. No, I mean, definitely. You fight against, or you strive to talk down the people that try to, apply their uh or try to proselytize, which we often kind of hear in the the Discord server, the fan server, proselytize their position and make it to where, you know, where was I going with this? Oh, to make it so that they can impede on the rights of others based on their faith or based on
Right.
whatever they apply their whole moral system to.
Mhm.
But at the same
Mhm.
time, yes, and I agree with you, Mikey. I do. You're more fearful than I am. I think I strive, and it takes all sorts of people, right? It takes you.
Yes.
It takes
Yes.
what Neil does. It takes what Malty does. It takes what I do to build a system to where, okay, we can have a civil conversation and work out our differences. I'm not trying to remove you from your faith, but you
Right.
should not impede what you apply your morals to stop my progress, to stop me being a human.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, just dialing back to what, just not too long ago, before Mandisa had her 10th anniversary conference, she wrote an article to the Interfaith Youth Corps, an article just pretty much celebrating the Black non-leaders in Interfaith America, and it was a statement that she made in reference to, what we have experienced during the grueling 4 years of the previous administration, what we have reflected just recently on with the insurrection early in January, and where we are now moving forward with the new administration, and how non-believers fit all together in that political mold. Um, she strives to make a point that all of us, belief and non-belief, want to work towards equality and overturning institutions that affect the marginalized groups in our country.
Yeah.
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 Absolutely.
When I was looking at I read her statement, her article, and then I'm like, oh, let me see what other people have to say about celebrating interfaith in America, or are studying interfaith. None of them had atheists in mind when they're talking about
Usually
interfaith. They
they
were
don't.
all about between the different faiths and how do we get along as with my God and your God. No God was not on the table,
Right.
unfortunately, and the academic, stuff. But being seen, being recognized, demanding to be recognized is something I think we're needing to work on,
Oh yeah.
and I think
Normalization.
Mandisa is doing a great job at that.
Yep,
Absolutely.
for sure.
And I know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
oh, please go ahead.
I just want to make a little. The reason they think that way, Malty, is because we don't use faith as atheists, not in the same way that they do. Not what that
Interfaith
statement
is
means, right? Interfaith, meaning other religious groups, right? And we are not a religious group. We are
right.
pretty much the polar opposite of that. So I can understand why they don't think of atheists when they think of interfaith conversations. But we're here if they do want to talk to us as well.
Yeah, yeah. And one of the things I think that I did see is they're talking about working together for community. And that is one thing that we definitely are wanting to be seen as a part of the community, that we can, as atheists, help in the overall. So we are a community that needs to be recognized and be brought in to these discussions, because there's all different types of ways of looking at the world, and some are more rational than others.
Yeah, but we have to be at that table. We have to
Yeah.
be not. I don't want to say allowed, because that just, I don't know, that just gives me a bad taste in my mouth. We definitely push we force or make us known that we are at the table and we deserve to be here because we live in this world the same as you. But we
Deserve
want
is a
to,
better word.
yes, thank you, deserve. We deserve to be seated at this table and to have this interfaith communication, just because we don't atone to some, powerful white bearded man up in the sky. Um,
Neil?
I did get an image of Neil in my
With long hair.
Is that you?
See?
Oh my
Long
God.
hair, white beard. Wait a minute.
Yeah, I see it.
You ever seen Neil and God in the same room at the same time?
Nope.
Just gonna leave that out.
Weird, huh?
You're
Just gonna leave that out there.
You're onto something. But what I was getting at is, and the point of us being
Get a
able,
raise, Mikey.
yes, please up his pay. We deserve to be at that table seated because we indeed are trying to at least challenge them to understand what we're coming from. And we want to invite this wonder opportunity of allowing others to understand atheism better because we all know what believers say, or at least what I've known growing up, what they say about non-believers, that we're Satan worshipers, that we eat babies, that we do all sorts of crazy things that are just, any crazy idea that you can apply that is not related to loving a God.
But I think that's why they don't invite the atheists, is because they can't continue to demonize, for lack of a better phrase, all the atheists and say that they eat babies and worship Satan, and then have seance circles where there's a black chicken foot, and then there's like some weird like they can't keep all that stuff up when a bunch of normal looking people walk into the conference and just sit down. It's like, oh, which group are you? Oh, we're all the atheists. Like they wouldn't know by looking at us because we're just normal people who just don't bother waking
Speak
up
for
on.
yourself.
Yeah, I think that was a bridge too far. We're not normal. All of us we're little kooks. We got some kooks here and there, but
Yeah,
we'd be all right.
Well,
We're colorful.
Yeah, for sure. And they can't make us the enemy if we're sitting across the table from them.
yeah,
And
it's normalization.
They need us to be the bad guy so that they can be the good guy.
Yeah. When I would go with a local atheist meetup group, and we would go volunteer at the food bank, shoveling frozen peas or corn into smaller bags from the giant freezer to go out to food banks. At the end, we'd all get a certificate with our group name on it, and we would everybody would give a big cheer from each of the groups. When it came to say our name, it was like this a little bit,
Oh,
and
boy.
it's okay because we accept the certificate graciously and said, we'll be here another 2 weeks. We're gonna be here, and you can count on us to help you guys out. That's why we're here.
yeah.
Yeah.
They're like, all right, guys, put your hands together for Malty and friends. And it was like,
Nearly
Interestingly enough, we have the Canadian Atheist Blood Donation Group which is tied into my blood donation group in honor of my dad. And it's funny because I got my dad's blood donation group up on the wall, but you don't see the Canadian Atheist one up on the wall.
Oh.
Which is weird because in Canada, most of the time they would be like, screw it, just put it up there.
Yeah.
Right.
And now I may be jumping the gun on this a little bit, but they just may not have made up the placard yet. So I don't know, but you don't see it there.
Mm-hmm.
But they are revamping too. So maybe when the new one goes up, it'll be on there finally. But it wasn't there for the longest time.
Well, here's hoping.
Revamping blood drive. I'm solving all the mysteries of the universe tonight.
I choose my words carefully, sir.
Vamping.
Please, don't think too hard on that connection, Mikey.
No, I got a cork board, some red yarn, and a bunch of quick pins. I'm about to solve this bad boy tonight.
But
Honey, get my Red Bull.
Oh yes.
This is why we're friends.
Need energy to make that connection. But to tie up with Mendy's article here, because I've read through it at least too many times. She's a person that I admire, and I had at one point had a personal conversation one-on-one with her. She is the most humble person I can ever speak with and have met and have continued to speak with and be friends with. And it takes that representation to really solidify within myself that I'm here. I am still moving forward, and I am still I'm here, and I don't have to fall back on the faith that I was raised into. I no longer am dependent on that because of people like her. and people like what we do as far with the ACA and what we do in our personal lives, I have found myself giving more to strangers than I ever did when I was a Christian. It's
Mhm.
crazy to me, and it's yeah, it's crazy to me. And I just want to quote her with something she said in the last tidbit here. And she's making a pretty strong stance on just, or a pretty strong statement, I should say, in referencing on the new administration. She says, quote, to achieve full religious diversity, equity, and inclusion, it is important for the new presidential administration to establish more interfaith dialogue and opportunities to work together. We deserve that seat at that table, to be a part of this conversation, to make it known that we are not what you perceive that we are. We are just as wholesome, more or less. We are just as warm and inviting and giving. And we
Mhm.
have built our own community just by proving that. I mean, Neil, you do this on almost a daily basis with the conversations you have with people coming out of religion.
Yeah.
I think that's the
Yeah.
best thing to do to, release those stories and make it known that this is where I came from, this is how I am now, and this is what I can offer to the
Oh,
community, society to make it better.
sure. I mean, when they're basically the same people. They just don't carry the belief anymore. That's it. They let go of a belief.
Mhm.
That's all they did. They're still the same people. So, if they were an ex-Muslim or an ex-Jew or an ex-Christian or an ex-Hindu, didn't matter. They're still the same people they were while they were a believer. They just don't have that belief anymore. That's the only difference.
It's the only difference. And
Well,
it's
they
even
might
more.
they might have given up on other beliefs too that went along with being in that belief system, like against LGBTQIA plus community, that kind
Mhm,
of thing
mhm.
as well.
Yeah, and keep in mind, I don't discriminate against anyone that's faith or non-faith as far as if they represent what I feel would be best for humanity as a whole. And
Mhm.
I think this kind of leads us into, as we wrap up with each other this afternoon, it leads us into reflecting on certain individuals present and in our past that have demonstrated their first, have demonstrated their strife and their empowerment and contributions to community as well. I know in my reflection, as far as you know separating myself from just speaking about the usual. There is one particular young woman by the name of Bianca Smith. Um, she has been, in the last month, declared the first Black woman to coach professional baseball. Granted, this is
Yeah, I
the
read that.
head coach of the Boston Red Sox, but
Oh, she could have picked a better team.
I,
Ah,
yeah, yeah,
Still, it's a first, and it's huge. It's still
it's
huge.
it is huge. It is huge, and
yeah,
it comes. And I chose this because uh, it comes double because not only she's Black, she's a woman. And it was interesting. I was listening to an interview that she did not too long ago, where she was asked a question as far as the challenges she had, sharing her background and her story and how she got there, things like that, the usual. She had said, and I'm kind of paraphrasing here, she said to the effect that she could not really place or identify uh, what challenges she met in regards to whether it be her skin color as far as getting into, the baseball league, or whether it be the fact that she's a woman. Because when she
yeah.
presents to these people, they see both. And
Mhm.
I think that was very powerful for her to say. And I want to hear about. I'm gonna move to Neil because I'm dying to hear about Viola. So please share.
Well, I mentioned earlier about how she was in the theater,
Oh yes,
and
that's right.
right,
Hmm.
and she was asked to leave, and she's like, "No."
Not
And then she
happening.
was arrested
Hmm.
and did some jail time. They released her, of course, but yeah, I mean, she stood up. She's one of the first here in Canada to stand up to that kind of racism.
Right.
Right?
It's so funny because I did a little quick Wikipedia search on her. When this show is aired, which is going to be February 7th, that would be the anniversary of her passing.
That's
So
right.
she
That's right.
passed. Yeah, she
Did
passed.
she have?
You
Does she
caught
have a
that, and I
day?
didn't. Wow, I should have caught that. Wow.
Does she have a day in Canada? Does she have a day?
Oh yeah.
No, she doesn't. Not that I'm aware of, anyways.
Get
There
it
could be
together,
something
Canada.
locally in her city that she lived in, but I'm not too sure. I'm not
Get it?
that up to speed. But yeah, but she is. She does have a permanent collection in the Museum of Human Rights here in Canada. So
Oh, that's beautiful.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I don't know, Multi, did you have any type of reference of a person that you kind of recognize?
I didn't.
No, did they? I know for you, I think for you, Multi, and I was thinking about this as we were kind of having a conversation about Shirley Chisholm.
Mhm.
You did such great stripe and effort as far as reflecting on her life and her background and where she come
I'll
from.
take fighting Shirley.
There you
Yes,
go.
you
There
bet.
you go. Own it.
You
I love
bet.
it. And Mikey,
Um,
yours.
I didn't know it had to be a recent person, so I accidentally picked James
Past or
Baldwin.
recent?
Oh, past or recent. I picked James Baldwin, American poet, author, and screenwriter. You might have seen some of his like interviews circulating through social media, and he would always be on like these panels with all white people, and he'd be talking about racism and stuff. And his calm and eloquent dismissal of racists on TV is something to behold. If you haven't seen it, just type in James Baldwin interview. It will blow your mind. And he did this in like the 60s, which was a very dangerous thing to do. Because as soon as he walked out of there to go get into his cab, it could have been a mob out there waiting for him. And he did what he had to do, and he said what he had to say. Didn't hold back anything. And I have one of his quotes here, which is one of my favorites. Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced.
oh, I love that. That's
I
great.
like that too. I like that too. You know what? You stole my thunder because I was gonna plug a little James Baldwin quote quote that I had.
That's
um,
why I'm here. That's why I'm
that-
here.
Well, how about this real quick? Here's the Rosa Parks $10 bill, or sorry, the
oh,
Viola Desmond $10 bill.
that's
There.
beautiful.
Oh, hey.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There you go.
You know, when we get Harriet Tubman on the 20 or the 10 or whatever
Please.
it's supposed to be, we'll send you a screenshot. Um, but I want to end with this. Also a James Baldwin quote. Uh, something that I think encompasses all of our talk conversation today. Um, I'll just go ahead and read it. We can disagree and still love each other unless your disagreement is rooted in my oppression and denial of my humanity and right to exist.
Mm,
Wow,
I think that
powerful.
all encompasses,
yeah.
you know, in fairness, all encompasses, the racial disparity, the not only applied racial disparity with, this disparity of being a non-believer. So much of that not only applies to Black people, but all of us. And it's important that I wanted to try and have this conversation with, you know, a variety of people here with me today to make the point that this can be an easy topic. This can be a civil
Mhm.
discussion. And I
Mhm.
really appreciate Multi, Neil, for being here doing the show with you, and our special guest, Mikey. I hope that even after this, you join us again sometime in the future.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
I'll make him. I'll make him.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And thank you for hanging in there, our YouTube audience. I know, and from the start, this was a tough conversation, but I think it was a conversation that needed to be had. And in the spirit of Black History Month, I just felt it was important to make some acknowledgement of important things that need to be addressed and to be heard. But if by all means, please comment, support us. Tell us what you liked or disliked about the episode today. Send us an email. That would be at nonprofits@atheist-community.org. If at all possible, please support our Patreon at patreon.com/the nonprofits. Find us on our fan Discord at tinycc/ACA Discord. And you can find us, discussing similar conversations like this and others on our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups the nonprofits live. Thank you, gentlemen, so much. And before I round it out, we were going to make history by adding in our dear friend Cynthia McDonald. Unfortunately, there had to be some personal family issues she needed to address, but in spirit, she contributed a lot to what we wanted to discuss here this afternoon. So thank you, Cynthia. You're in our thoughts, and we love you. As to all of us here, we are the nonprofits. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.